Hello, everyone. Um, Today I have a very special guest here. His name is Andreas. He makes videos on YouTube as well. He has a very nice YouTube channel. I've been following him for quite a while, and I resonated deeply with the stuff he's putting out. Um, it seemed like for me, it just clicks onto like this bigger picture of recovery and transformation within the recovery period. And then I watched his website and I actually saw that he also dealt with some illness a few years ago, and that made me really interested to just hear more about his story and how this all unfolded for him. So here, Andreas, take the stage.
Sure, thank you. Um, yeah, my channel is a lot about spiritual awakening, coming into acceptance of the present moment and seeing sort of where the gold nuggets are despite of your situation. And the way in which I had to learn that was through health challenges because I was in a state of my life where I lived, I would say, very unconsciously. I was stuck in a lot of different habits that were very detrimental to me as a person, as a being. I was, addicted to a lot of things. I was completely in the wrong area trying to make things happen in my life that wasn't authentic to who I was. And I would say that the universe kind of stepped in and gave me a lot of health challenges that made it so that I started waking up to a deeper aspect of who it is that I really am that could never have happened unless I truly went through that sort of pain and suffering that came with that very challenging period of my life. It was sort of the catalyst to me waking up to there being something deeper than just the ego and who it is that I thought that I was. Do you want me to tell you a little bit about this story, or is there something specific that you would like to
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
to
I would
me
love to
about?
hear more. And I think this is so similar to my story as well, and a lot of other people where you just in the beginning you can't even see that's the bigger thing going on. You just think like, what's happening? I'm facing these health challenges, and you're looking in directions at looking at going at doctors and whatever. And over time, you see you develop this kind of view where it's like, yeah, this is a bigger thing. Like you said, the universe is kind of stepping in and saying like, okay, there has to be a change now. And I love the term you say it quite often, I think, making the unconscious conscious, and that's such a big part of it. And yeah, I would love to hear more about how it kind of unfolded for you, how it started, and um,
So, I think it was about in 2019 that I was in a big accident or an accident. I was living a lifestyle of partying and taking drugs and stuff. And this was at a point where my body just said no to all of that. And it was like a hard night. And I found myself in the hospital, having sort of like a meltdown with my health issues. And the day after that visit to the ER was the first day of this like spiritual awakening that took place because of my health issues, because I was feeling more and more over, let's say, a 2 or 3 year period of my life, more uncomfortable in my skin almost every single day because
mm,
these symptoms and things that I was experiencing were something that I was deeply afraid of. And this came also as a result because at this point of my life, I am deeply connected to what I would say my authentic self, which goes beyond a little bit the ego. I thought that Andreas, my name, was all that there was to this reality.
mm,
Um, and I was terrified of losing that connection to Andreas. I was an atheist, so I didn't believe in any spiritual stuff or anything like that. And this thing took place at a point where I was deeply terrified of death, for example. I was at this moment of my life before it happened, I was, the idea that I had about my future was that at some point I'm gonna figure out how to live forever. That's how I'm going to like counteract this idea of death. I'm just never gonna die at some point.
Mm.
Um, so I had this 3 year period where the symptoms started getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I was fighting it at all times, thinking that I was about to die, that there was something really terrible that was going on. And there was no way out of this pain and suffering. It was there. You couldn't escape it.
Mm.
And it wasn't supposed to be escaped. It's something that I now understand looking back at it, because it was meant to be embraced in my view, and the way that I still remember it, because it was awakening me to something deeper inside. Um, because there was nowhere to really run, because you couldn't really run from this. And the more that you tried to run from it, the more you were just sort of doing the same thing that was actually hurtful, which is to escape this present moment of what was going on. And that led to all of the suffering that I was actually going through at the time. And funny enough, after this 1 to 3 year period, what actually started to finally relieve these symptoms that I was feeling for the longest time, because I did have some issues with my body, but nothing was really life-threatening.
Mm.
It was scary. It was something that really held me up at night and that had me worried and scared. And at the end of this 3 year period, what kind of changed it was I was actually here in the place where I'm right now. And I was visiting here. I had to get out of the city because the symptoms just became getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I just felt like I had to like escape this house. And I was like coming to this point where I was done running. I I just couldn't run anymore. And I came out here and these symptoms started coming on full force, and I was terrified and afraid. And I was laying here in my bed. Um, and at that point, um, and the funny thing is that during this 1 to 3 year period, there were certain signs that was pointing me towards more of that there was a deeper sense of myself, and that I could sort of trust a little bit what I was going through. There were some signs along the way that, if I kind of surrendered to just feeling these symptoms and stuff, that I wouldn't die, because I think that's the thing that was so scary for me at the time, was that I thought that I would die if I allowed these symptoms to sort of run their course. I always had to fight it, to try and stay on top of it, to try and um, fix it in some way. I never allowed it to be there as it is. I always tried to change it and tried to fight it and tried to make it into something that it wasn't just naturally in this moment. So this night came around, and I had been fighting it in this way for maybe 3 years, where I always tried to push it to the side or try to overcome it or change it in some way. And then I was just laying here and I was like, I'm done fighting. I'm just gonna die. Like, I'm at that point right now where I'm just gonna die. I'm done fighting. Let's just die. I'm done. And then I was laying here on my bed and the symptoms came on full force, and I just found peace with them. For the first time in my life, I was like, okay, I just found peace with it. I'm just gonna die. And then, I didn't die. So I'm still here.
Maybe a
And
part of you did die.
there was a part of me that died that night, of
Yeah.
course. There was the part of me that was afraid, that was fighting, that was going against it. The ego part that was trying to, be in control by suppressing these feelings and sensations. I let go of that part and connected back to something deeper beyond that afraid version of myself. And yeah, that's short version of how like health issues took me to like my first spiritual awakening. This was maybe like 4 years ago now, so it's been a little while, but like that's how health issues sort of started it up for me, from atheist to like seeing the world in a deeper perspective. That's kind of how it started.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's so similar to the audience I have and the things they struggle with. It's like there probably has been like a voice whispering deep inside of you, but you have been ignoring it all the time, and it starts to talk louder, and it starts to talk louder, and eventually it's screaming through you at you through the body, through these symptoms. And you keep on getting into the mind and kind of resisting. And that's just making it worse and worse because there's
Yeah,
nowhere, like you said, there's nowhere to go. The resistance is just extra fuel on the fire. Um, and that has been a big part for me as well, just embracing the resistance, embracing the symptoms. And I often say also, my friend Kyle, who also makes videos, he also says like die into symptoms, die into the experience and just
yeah.
surrender. So yeah, that's beautiful, I think.
So, yeah. Yeah, there's it's very funny. But yeah, I had these symptoms for a very long time. And I still sometimes can still feel it coming up sometimes, when you start moving a little bit into that reactive space of things.
Mm,
That it can still come and like shake you up a little bit sometimes. Like, oh, now I'm like doing this again, even 4 years
mm,
after. It can still like come up sometimes when I've had like health issues. Because it was a very like it was a challenging period. Um, but now afterwards, I almost feel like I still carry a little bit of that with me. And it was almost because it's funny because that was like the most challenging period of my life in one sense. There's challenges in my life now also. Um, Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. You
no,
can go
yeah,
on. Yeah, there was
yeah.
something,
I
but
think
whatever.
it's also it has to do with just sensitive people in the first place. I think people with a
Mhm.
sensitive nervous system, and then going into growing up in this environment in this society, and we adopt all and we inherit all these beliefs from parents, from society, and eventually there's so much emotional repression involved and just being out of alignment. And I think then we can come to this breaking point where we come back. And from that point, I think I feel you in that sense that you kind of keep this guide with you in the form of being able to experience when you're getting out of alignment much more than I was able to experience that beforehand. Then I would just kind of maybe it was there, but I wouldn't be able to notice it. And now it
Yeah.
feels more like you say, when you go out of alignment, you feel it. It's like a compass. It keeps you on the direction. And sometimes the mind really wants to fight with that. It's like, why do I still get these symptoms maybe? And then it's again surrendering into like the mind doesn't know maybe, what's right for me. And I have to trust the body and whatever there is more than that, that this is maybe just not right for me and authentically aligned.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the reason for why we have a lot of these health issues in my opinion, is because of that like repressed energy
Mm,
from these stories, from these beliefs, right, that are manifested still within the body, and then of course create illness, disease, sickness because of the imbalance that's going on. And then all of these things that we're actually feeling is just that energy trying to make itself up again, but we're still not allowing ourselves to tune into it, still just suppressing it, pushing it down with our thoughts, with our behaviors, with our reactions, doing something that is always overthinking perhaps, or being somewhere else other than actually tuning into the body. That
mm,
is just at every moment just fighting for your attention, like come on, make it more painful, I'm gonna make it more uncomfortable, I'm gonna push through even more, so that at some point you're just gonna realize that it's so unbearable
mm,
that you just have to feel. It's gonna come up at some point, and it's just about feeling that, tapping into that, and then kind of making peace with that energy, with whatever's going on with you, with the chaos, with the whatever it is that's being inside you. You don't have to label it, you just have to feel it. You don't have to turn it into like a mental thing where you understand it to try to logically break it down into something. It's just about coming into actually feeling it, and then you're moving with it, you're becoming one with it, and then you find that balance within your body again, so it can sort of not hold on to this energy and create the sort of health issues and all that comes with it, but it just starts to like sort of starts to melt away. Your body's tuning back into its ability to heal, to regenerate. And yeah, it's just about like tapping into that and having the trust and just the bravery of moving into that and just being like, yeah, I'm gonna allow this to do its thing, and I'm gonna trust that if I actually move into this space of feeling this, that things are gonna work out. And it is, and it's not worth living in that space where life is just painful and challenging every single day because of the resistance that you're creating to this, because that's not a very satisfying, nice life to live. Like
Mm.
there comes a point, even as it was for me, where I was just like, I'd rather die than continue to live in this way where I'm having this resistance all the time towards it.
Yeah.
So, and I think that comes for everyone at some point, whether you accept that sooner than me or later than me. Depends on person to person, I guess. But eventually, this energy is going to make itself known to you, no matter how far you try and sort of push it away. And
Yeah.
then and you get to the voila, the core of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a natural thing to it. You try to just get rid of it all the time, and there comes a point where it's it's not doable anymore, and you'll just have to feel it, have to surrender. I was wondering, did you ever kind of got into like a story about the symptoms? Did you go to doctors? Did you get diagnosed for something, or did you know all the time that it was something more, uh, yeah, more of a spiritual or like mind body thing?
Um, I went to the doctors um, and did as much as I could. First, I went to just the normal medical industry here in Sweden, which is kind of shitty. They couldn't help me at all.
Mm,
And then I went to like a holistic doctor that did some readings on my body and stuff, and he could actually see that there were like some things going on that were not that well. And then we started working on it, we started fixing it, and it actually healed, and then it started looking great. And I think this was about 6 months where I had some things going on that didn't look good in my body. That was like, this is something that is not as it should be. But then after those 6 months, I was completely fine, completely healed. All of those things were gone. And then still, I was starting to feel worse and worse and worse.
mm,
Even though on paper, from all the sources, I was actually looking very healthy at this point. So, um, yeah, if that answers your
yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah. Because I think with the audience, I'm having like chronic fatigue syndrome and long COVID. It's
Mhm.
very big that people get like a diagnosis and they cling on to the diagnosis. And then just like myself in the beginning, I was looking at supplements and whatever treatments and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, there comes a point where just like we said before, it just gets too intense and hopefully through seeing content that other people make about this whole thing, you can realize that there's something bigger going on and then you can dive into that. But a lot of people are stuck in that phase of clinging on to like a diagnosis. So I was wondering if that was the case for you. But,
No, I was not clinging on to like some diagnosis. I was completely in the unknown, not understanding really of
mm,
what it was that was going on. So I didn't have a diagnosis of that sort. No, very little information actually, because on paper I looked completely healthy. No
yeah,
one could find anything, yet I was feeling kind of worse than ever.
yeah,
So I did not have it in that sense. No.
yeah. And I was also wondering, how did that progress like in those years? How did you get uh, onto resources or things that kind of helped you view things in a bigger way? How did that progress? Because for me as well in the beginning, it was a lot of resistance to the whole process and kind of still trying all the time to get back into my normal life, get back into I was studying at the time and I just wanted to go back there and I wanted to head the same direction until I kind of found these other resources and tuned into my body and surrendered. And yeah, I was wondering how that came along for you.
Yeah. So I think that after those 3 years, what really changed for me was that I finally trusted the body and what it was feeling. That was like this point where everything like kind of clicked for me. And during those 3 years, I did not trust my body. I did not trust what I was feeling. I was fighting it all the time. And I think that I didn't, of course, I was looking and going through things and looking for resources maybe here and there. But I think also that, just scrolling through YouTube and having an open mind, I think that slowly and steadily I found the right sort of things that I needed to hear based on how ready I was for it. So I kind of started to change my worldview over those 3 years. Um, because I kind of felt in my heart that this was right. I was reading something and then it was like, it just hit me a little bit. I was like, maybe this is something I can trust, but seems a little bit too out there, maybe.
Mm.
And then it's almost as if the right information was presented at the perfect time for me to sort of accept a little bit more that maybe I could trust what I was going through. So I think just having that open mind and also the suffering that of course made the other way impossible to go through, that I had to start looking a little bit more towards perhaps something different than what I was used to. It was like this perfect just timeline of letting go of the old because there was no old to go back to because there was just suffering this way, and then starting to look a little bit for new opportunities, for new ways of looking at this thing. I don't think I necessarily found the things myself. I think they kind of presented themselves to me, and it was up for me to just recognize them as they were coming along. Because the way that I see it, like everything is happening for you, and I know it doesn't seem like that when you're going through this thing. It doesn't seem like, how could this pain and this suffering be for me? But it is pushing you in a certain direction, and if you're open to it, then you're gonna find out sooner or later exactly why this happened to you. And for me, it was just about being open to seeing sort of the signs and recognize like a little bit of information here. Like it really hits me, and I was like, wow, maybe I can trust this a little bit more. For example, I think that by the time that 3 year went and I had this switch moment, that I was reading something about some more spiritual stuff about exactly what I'm talking about, that something is actually trying to work something out for you here, because I thought it was just me fighting against like the universe and like these sensations and emotions and like trying to control the situation and stuff like that. But just breaking out of that controlling way and just into accepting this slowly, it happened perfectly as it was meant to for me. That is what changed it all. I was just kind of open to it, I think, because of the suffering that I was going through. There was no other way but to be open. And then, of
Mm.
course, it's up to you to just sort of grab those small nuggets and small opportunities that come along the way as you're moving away from wherever it was that you came from to begin with.
Mm. Yeah, and then you can see that the suffering was grace because that was the thing that opened you up to those possibilities. Whereas if it wasn't there, you would just be closed off to that, to those possibilities.
Yeah. And I mean, suffering is an ego thing. It's not a natural thing to your authentic and true self that goes
Mm.
beyond the ego. And that suffering, of course, came from the ego trying to stay alive by controlling the situation and pushing these emotions and sensations and whatever was coming up through your body to the side. And when you're connected to this and find peace with it, you're not really afraid anymore. You're just in peace with it. And of course, it can be still a bit painful. It can still be uncomfortable and stuff like that. But when you find peace with it, you realize that you didn't really sought for it to be different anyway. So you just kind of wanted to have peace with it, which is not something that you perhaps realize until you find peace with it. That, oh, it doesn't really matter if I'm feeling this, if I'm not feeling this. It's just that the resistance to it was the overwhelming thing that made life so hard. Not the thing itself, just my resistance to
Mm.
it. So, yeah.
Yeah, trying to control and then ah yeah, it's been such a crazy journey for me as well. I'm still very much in the midst of it, but um yeah, I was also wondering because of that I've been reading, for example, Joe Dispenza's stuff lately. And uh I know you also like his work or yeah,
I
his
used to follow him back in the days a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering, how do you kind of balance the kind of surrendering into the nothingness and letting go of the ego into kind of, because I think in the manifestation world, kind of people, it can come from a place of the ego, trying to get things. How do you understand where I'm coming from? The question, kind of how you balance the surrendering into just not knowing and seeing how the path unfolds and trying to be kind of the creator in the process.
Yeah, so I think it's one thing maybe that can be good to think about when you just talk about like the manifestation space. Um, so if you're trying to manifest something, the quality of what you're experiencing in this moment is what is manifesting the next moment. And a lot of people might get caught up in trying to think about their manifestation and trying to be in that space. But as long as your energy is in that space, thinking about the future, you're not really tapped into this space. So it's about I am not trying to manifest anything in my life at this point because I realized that with this trust that came to my body, I also trust that something beautiful is going to play itself out in my life also at this point because I've had the proof of it through these experiences that took me to this place where I understand that now. And the quality of this moment is what creates the next moment. So when you're tapping in authentically to who you are in this moment and trusting and going with your joy, with your passions, with your excitement, and just tapping into having the absolute most amazing time that you can in this moment, then you don't really have to think about the next moment because that moment will naturally start becoming the most beautiful it could ever be because you're tuning into what is fun, what is exciting, what is joyful in this moment now. So you don't have to think about like that next thing. Of course, there are perhaps some things that you would like to happen, and I'm not saying that you don't need to have that idea about some things that would be amazing. But you can also trust that those things will arrive if you tap into what is right for you in this moment and live here, not because of where it's going to take you, but because of how amazing something can fulfill you in this moment and drop this notion of trying to do something based on where it's going to take you because the most beautiful outcome is going to come from you tapping into doing what is most beautiful to you in this moment. That's just natural. It's just effortless. It's just going to happen. It's going to be even better than your ideas about what you want because those are not operating from your highest potential anyways because that comes from something deeper, something that
Mm.
can't always be understood. And it just becomes the best that it can possibly be in ways perhaps that doesn't make sense at first. Because of course you have to go a little bit beyond this human perspective of, oh, I want this money or I want this, whatever thing it is that I'm trying to manifest can actually stop you from manifesting, let's say, perhaps the deepest love in some relationship that was going to come along because you tap into the joy of doing this thing where you met these people because that were authentic to you, for example. And then you're gonna drop this idea about where it is that you should be and just start doing things based on how fulfilling it is for you in this moment. Um, that's how I see manifestation a little bit. I don't personally try and manifest things anymore. I'm just trying to create this present moment into the most beautiful thing that I could ever do, not based on where it's going to take me, but by how fulfilling it is right now. And then naturally, of course, you tap into the power of manifestation because this moment manifests the next moment, what is going on right now. And when you're tapping into this moment in this way that I'm explaining, you're creating this moment into the most amazing, fun, enjoyable, exciting place that it ever could be. And that manifests the next moment. You can't always perhaps understand exactly what's going to come next from that, but you can be sure that it's going to be an equal match to how amazing you're living your life. So manifestation for me is a lot about moving away a little bit from trying to understand the outcome, trying to understand where it is that I'm coming, not look to what it is that I want next, but how I can make this moment just amazing right now,
Mm.
basically.
Yeah, I agree. It always starts in this moment, and when you're dealing with these health issues, that might be, this moment might be the thing you're avoiding most and have been avoiding for a long time. And but you have to go through that. That's the shadow presenting itself, screaming to be integrated and to be seen. Um, but on the other side of that, there's the beauty, so I totally agree. It always starts in this moment, and yeah, you have to see the beliefs and the resistances around the things that are also in this moment to be able to to get more into that, deeper into that, and drop those beliefs. Like, I can't feel this. This is too much. This is gonna kill me, like you said. This is I can't
Mm.
surrender to this because then I will lose control, and whatever. The mind just tries to grab onto to everything about control. But just like you said, some things are just deeper than that, and it knows more than the mind. The mind is just secondary, trying to make a story out of the past and going into the future, trying to predict things like, what do I want? What does the society want from me? Whatever, and getting more in touch with that body and in this present moment is crucial, I think. Do you have any kind of tips for people to get to dial that more in and to yeah, get that practice going?
Um, your body is a friend and a relationship that needs work. Your body has intuition, it has emotions, it has feelings, and those can be trusted in a lot of cases. Trust your joy, trust your excitement, trust your body when it says no to this thing, trust your body when it's saying this or that. You have a heart here, which also has the same neuroreceptors that a brain has that is capable of thinking. And this one is always giving a very, very, very subtle signal as to something that is in alignment with your highest potential for your life. It's hard to hear it. It's hard to understand exactly what your heart wants in this moment if you're still holding on to a lot of these programs. And the programs is holding on to the mind and its way of thinking, reacting, and doing things because it's separating you from feeling the body because it's an uncomfortable place to exist in. So you can start working on feeling your body. And whatever way you do that is up to you. But to start developing and seeing your body as a relationship that needs work on, you can do yoga, go walking, you can breathing, you can do sports, you can do literally anything that you feel called to that feels like this is something that would be fun for you. Start connecting to the body because the body can give you signs about pretty much everything. It's an instrument that very few people are using because we have been programmed and conditioned, like you're saying, by these beliefs from past, from society, and so on, to not understand what it is that we truly want because we're supposed to do what others truly want. At least that's how it would seem, right? But it's not actually how it should be. So developing the relationship to your body is a great starting point. And these health issues that you're going through, where your viewers are having, that's exactly what you're doing right now also. So I want you to be encouraged by the fact that you're already doing a lot of this work by being on this journey where you are right now. Like you're developing this relationship to your body so that you can hear your joy, your excitement, passion, so that you can know what is not for you, where to walk away, where to walk more into what it is that you want. All of this stuff is starting to come online for you. There's a reason that you're going through all of this pain, and it's because you're connecting back to your body. So you can work a little bit consciously on this, but also be aware of the fact that you're already doing a lot. So you don't have to put a lot of extra pressure on yourself right now because you're already moving through it. You're already making it there. Like it's already happening for you. Um, yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think the body, getting in touch with the body is at the root of it, because like when you look at these people having like these chronic weird symptoms like chronic pain as well and fatigue and all those things, you hear a lot of times like there's a certain personality type to it. They're sensitive, they're people pleasers, they are not good at putting up boundaries. And I think all of those things are, uh, especially the boundaries and the people pleasing uh, part of it, is like a coping mechanism to kind of be seen and get validation from others. And it results out of not being in contact with your body. And then you can approach that from a really cognitive approach, like, okay, I need to be better at setting boundaries and blah blah blah. But at the root of it is that you're out not in touch with your body, because your body will present the boundaries, your body, but you're just not hearing it. You're in your mind trying to, there's another motivation running at the same time, because you're looking for external validation or whatever. Once you get into
Mhm.
that body, I think all those things start to straighten out more and more. And of course, there will be times where you're presented with, okay, now I can really feel this boundary. Now I also have to speak it out, and I have to put it out in the world, and that can be scary because you're probably not used to doing that, and there's a lot of beliefs around what it will trigger in other people, and maybe, you know, it will be new, but you will be ready for that when you get more into the body. And then there's also, I think, a safety that gets created into the body, and then more stuff can come up, more things that you've been repressing for longer can come up. And then it might even look like you're getting worse in your symptom wise, like, oh no, I'm getting new symptoms, I'm getting more tension, I'm getting more this and that. But that's just more things to work through, and it's a good sign because it's there's space for it. The body and the nervous system feels like there's more safety, so it can bring up more stuff. It's just the next step, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And being a people pleaser is it's about like all of those similar things. It's about not being able to feel uncomfortable in your own body. And this is not your fault. It's just a survival mechanism that you picked up that you needed to have for the longest period of your life because you are a little bit extra sensitive to energy and you had a surrounding that made it feel as if it was not safe to truly feel and experience yourself as you are. So now the universe is pushing you a little bit to connect back into feeling yourself. And it's happening through something that cannot be denied anymore, which is these health issues, right? If you're having those. And yeah, it's just about embracing that. And however long that takes for you varies a lot from person to person.
Mm.
And you're always making progress in that area, whether you are, as I said, consciously putting in the work or not, because it's sort of happening for you at this point. You're coming, this is happening for a reason. You are being pushed along this path to come back into the ownership of everything that is you so that life can be fucking amazing. It's supposed to be amazing, and that's where you're going into something amazing. So you can look forward to that.
Yeah, yeah. I loved hearing your story, and um, it's the thing I want to focus on more now. I've been making videos about kind of how to deal with the symptoms and how to things like somatic tracking techniques, and more in my journey as well now is just like seeing the bigger picture and the transformation that this journey is pushing you on, and embracing that instead of fighting it and going with the heart instead of the mind. And yeah, that's why connecting to this is like, how what are you doing now? How's your life? How are you? You're making videos. You have a coaching thing. I thought. Am I right?
For me,
Yeah.
actually, I ran the coaching thing for a while, but then I decided that I'm not doing it anymore because it didn't resonate with me. So,
Mm.
not doing that anymore. I have my YouTube channel where I make my videos, and besides with the video making, these health things that we're actually talking about has been very prevalent or like kind of something that is still with me to this day. So I still have to rest in a lot of cases. I understand that it's not because of sickness anymore, it's just because of the nature of who I am. So I make my YouTube videos, I rest a lot, spend time with my girlfriend, just enjoying my life to the best of my ability. And I know that there's a lot of downtime in my life right now, but it's always shifting and changing a little bit. But right now my life is quite chill, requires a lot of rest for me, like it does for a lot of people at this time. And then I make my YouTube videos, and besides for that, not a lot more is happening right now. It's
Yeah.
just making YouTube videos, enjoying myself, trying to have fun when I have the energy, enjoy the sports that I'm doing and stuff like that. So that's what I'm up to mostly right now.
Yeah. Sounds great. I can for everybody watching, check out his channel. It's you have amazing kind of pointers that also you see in the comments. People say like, this is amazing. This just at this time it finds me, like the things you're saying.
Yeah.
It's short messages, but they just kind of get you back into alignment and trusting what's happening and surrendering to that. Really helps.
Yeah. It's really cool because when you start connecting to your own system again and you move through things. In my case, for example, I just start talking from the heart of what I've been through lately. Then it's just like, oh, everyone's going through this, or not
Mm.
everyone, but there's a group of people that is moving through the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, yeah, I could never mentally figure out one of these videos and be like, oh, I'm gonna talk about this tomorrow, or like talk about these things, and then people are gonna resonate. It's like, no, I live my life in a way that feels like it's how I need it to be right now, and then I just enjoy myself, and then like, oh, I have this video idea, and then I get like a little excitement over the idea, and then I release it, and then it's like a lot of people, wow, that's exactly what I'm going through. So it's really cool what happens when you start like tapping into your body and the signals and the messages, and that just keeps evolving, and it can turn into so many things. But that's like one of the things it turned into for me is just its ability to sort of connect with other people and kind of understand what others are going through, just based on what I'm going through. So that's super cool.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks a lot, Andreas. And yeah,
Thank you for having me.
yeah. All right. Goodbye, everyone.